would be multiple access techniques for future radio access for sixth generation of wireless communication or 5G or beyond. Okay, so in this we will cover several techniques what we see for. So next section after the this one around 2:30 we will have a quiz and it will generate a certificate automatically, right? So you have to join it. I'll share the quiz link, and as soon as you clear the quiz, you will have a certificate. It's an auto-generated certificate. So please attend at 2:30. So some of the participants they said that they want to have just a quiz in the next session, so they don't want to have a session because the quiz will take some time for them. So if we have some time, we'll have a session. Otherwise, we can have a quiz after this at 2:30. So please join at 2:30 for a quiz. Okay. So in this current session, what we are going to discuss is several multiple access technologies for future radio access. You know, in the deployment of 5G and beyond. It could be for 6G also. So we'll start with a brief history about the multiple access technologies what we have for wireless communication. So far what we have is frequency division multiple access, time division multiple access, code division multiple access, space division multiple access, orthogonal frequency division multiple access, non-orthogonal multiple access, and hybrid OFDMA and NOMA, right? So there are some advanced version of OFDM also, such as let's say spectrum filtered OFDM, filtered bank multi-carrier FBMC, non-orthogonal multiple access or NOMA, or pattern division multiple access. All right, so there are few more such as sparse code multiple access. Correct. So the general idea behind these multiple access technologies or techniques for wireless communication is to allow multiple users at the same time so that they can communicate and have a fair access on a network, right? And generally frequency. Correct. So this was known as frequency division duplexing. In time division duplexing, we have two divisions, such as let's say of use they used to use two different time slots, one for forward and one for reverse link. So forward direction slot and reverse direction slot. So multiple users they say share a single radio channel across two different slots, right? Forward slots and reverse slot. So what is multiple access? So multiple access means multiple mobile stations or mobile users can share a radio channel without creating an interference. That's what known as a multiple access. And traditionally, no, we use very frequently about this frequency division duplexing or time division duplexing very nicely in the older generations, right? So if I look at the general structure of FDMA, frequency division multiple access, where there are different frequencies, and we used to assign different frequencies to different mobile stations at the same time. So all of them they can transmit simultaneously at the same time, but the frequencies would be different. Correct. So here you can see there are different mobile users or mobile stations. Let's say first one is allocated with F1 dash, second one is allocated with F2 dash, and so on. Now this is sort of an uplink channel. So we may use different frequency in downlink also. So let's say if you take just mobile station one, uplink we're using F1 dash and downlink could use F1. Both the frequencies are different. So time is same, frequencies are different, whether it's uplink, downlink, or multiplexed in any of the direction. Correct. So different carriers are used. The problem was this one was we have to leave some sort of guard band or protection band, protecting bandwidth across between the channels, right? So there was a guard band between two users, as well as there was a large guard band between uplink and downlink also, right? So that was a kind of a wastage of bandwidth in FDMA, the traditional FDMA what we used to use. Similarly for TDMA, frequency remains same, but they had different time slots. So user 1, user 2, user n, they had different time slots, right? So frequency remains same, but there are different time slots, so they can speak in their different time slots. Now, advantage is frequency. I mean, disadvantage is that simultaneous transmission cannot be there. It's kind of a lot of delay comes here. So let's say if one frequency is allocated for all the mobile users, and they have to wait for their own slot. Correct. If one user is allocated, they have to wait for their own slot, and that slotting mechanism will waste a lot of time. It could be a different slot for uplink and downlink, right? And it could be a different frequency for uplink and downlink. Uplink, all the mobile users will share one frequency. Downlink, all the mobile users will share another frequency with a slotted pattern. That was traditional TDEMA structure. So generally, we have a ring kind of thing that everyone will speak when they get a token, and then the TDM signal is multiplexed and transmitted. So this is kind of a slotted signal, slot one, two, so on up to slot n, right? So, and combinedly they make a frame. So this is how the transmitter works. At the receiver side, what we do is we used to extract uh, those slots, and then we need to demodulate and give it back to the user, right? So that's my idea behind the TDMA. That was the generic idea. That was the generic idea behind TDMA. That was the generic idea behind TDMA. Sometimes what happens that TDMA FDD, the TDMA FDD, what we used to do is uplink, we have one frequency, and it is slotted across multiple users. And downlink, we used to have another frequency. It is slotted across multiple users, right? So that's what TDMA FDD was. And the problem here was a lot of delay because everyone has to wait, and we have to have the guard bands. That is a trouble. So everyone has to wait, and we have to have a guard band. That's a major trouble and bottleneck here, right? So guard band, you know, is also creating a trouble here. But the time wasted. So we moved on a little bit from FDMA, TDM, and we reached CDMA. So in CDMA, what happened is, let's say there are multiple users, user one, user two, user n, and each and every user will get a unique code, pseudo random code, right? So PN sequence code, and using that code, each and everyone can transmit at the same time, same frequency. The codes are different, and the intended receiver will have the same code, and he will unlock the signal and receive. That was the idea behind this CDMA that was proposed here. So it's like a separate unique code per user. The code sequence are and the code sequence are orthogonal with each other, so different users can use the same frequency simultaneously. So here it enabled massive access by allowing plenty of users to be, allowing plenty of users to have an access on the same frequency, right? So the general structure for CDMA was, let's say, mobile station 1 has a code 1, and the receiver the mobile station 2 has code 2, mobile station 3 has code 3, and it would be received by the respective receiver by with the same, with a similar code. And CDMA enabled a lot of users to have an access simultaneously. So that's why it was very, employed technology in the, previous generations after FDMA and TDMA. Correct. There were two methodologies to spread the signal. One is direct sequence spreading and frequency hopping. So what we used to use is when we have an original signal, we'll see the advanced one very soon. I'm just covering up a brief of the older one. Original signal, when we have that, we used to multiply the code to spread the signal, right? So there was a direct spreading, and subsequently there is a frequency hopping mechanism also. This were the older generation techniques. And then we used to have a near far problem in that also, right? So near far problem, that means what? Mobile transmission MS, right, will have power from MS2 also. Mobile transmission MS1 will receive the power for MS2 also, and that will create the interference because of the near far problem. See, it's a far located signal, so it will transmit a larger signal for MS2, right? And that would be radiated across the cell, and then the nearby users will also receive that power, and that will create an interference. That was the trouble which we faced in CDMA. Later was it was eliminated by intelligent power control mechanisms, or some sort of things, right? So that was the power control mechanism. Now, see, advanced techniques will start from here. That was just a brief for TDMA, FDM, and CDMA. Now, right now, what people are trying to use is called space division multiple access. Space division multiple access means what? The entire space is divided into the multiple segments. And for each segment, we have a beamforming antenna or smart antenna, right? So space is divided into the spatially, separable sectors. And then we have a beamforming antenna, which is a smart antenna, which will maximize the gain in a specific direction, which will maximize the gain in a specific direction, right? Such as this beam one, beam two, beam three, and so on. So this was something proposed in the latest technologies, where these beamforming antennas, smart antennas, they were defined by the software controlled by the deep learning, and they can radiate a beam in a specific direction towards the mobile user, and that is widely employed with MIMO, right? So here you can see, when there is a specific user, I can read it in a specific direction only with smart antennas using the beamforming technology. So now what we want to have is a new radio multiple access technologies for 5G and beyond. Okay, new radio multiple access technologies for 5G and beyond. So generally, the idea is like basic, OFDM was kind of an advanced version of a technology which was widely employed in fourth generation, and it is rolled out to the fifth generation also, maybe with advanced versions. So OFDM, the basic idea was, it is known as orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, which will divide the high bitrate streams into the low bitrate streams, which will divide the high bitrate streams into the low bitrate streams, employing serial to parallel conversion, right? So let's say I have a high bitrate stream, and then I can put all the bits one after another one on that particular carrier. Whereas we don't want that. We have orthogonal carriers. Let me see here. Okay, we got orthogonal carriers here. So all the bits simultaneously can be placed. So let's say I got a modulation format QPSK, then I got four symbols. So four carriers, I can put each symbol on each, and then I can transmit simultaneously, right? So that was the idea behind the OFDM. It's kind of a multi-carrier transmission together. So uh, it will divide a high bit stream into the several low bit stream, using the serial to parallel converter, right? So here, this was the serial transmission. Let's say we got all the bits, and we got a frequency. On that particular frequency, here we transmit one after another in a serial fashion. Now, that was a wastage of my time. Instead, what I do is I can have multiple orthogonal carriers using OFDMA, and then I can put all the bits simultaneously on that respective carrier, and then I transmit them simultaneously on a channel, right? So how we generate the QPSK, how we generate the OFDM. So let's say we got a QPSK modulation format, okay, and then we this is generic equation. I mean, these are the four symbols of QPSK. Each symbol will have two bits, right? And then I'll use four orthogonal carriers. These are my carriers, right? Four orthogonal carriers, shifted carriers, in such so that I can transmit each symbol on each subcarrier simultaneously. So four subcarriers will carry this one, and that's visible here. We can see that each symbol can be placed here and then transmitted simultaneously, okay, using this one. So how we generate OFDM? In the traditional one, generally we use a frequency mixture to generate the carriers, right? So, but that is expensive. But in OFDM, if you look at the equation nicely and carefully, we can use an inverse Fourier transform. So, sorry, FFT, right? So using IFFT, inverse Fourier transform, FFT inverse, using that, we can generate multiple carriers after this, and then put each symbol on each carrier and transmit. We can use inverse. This is the equation for inverse Fourier transform, right? So after this, we can use multiple carriers and put each symbol on each carrier and then transmit over. So this is nothing but an OFDM generator, and this is nothing but OFDM receiver. So if we use IFFT here, inverse Fourier transform here, at the receiver side, we decode the signal or maybe extract the signals using FFT. And as we said, they are orthogonal to each other, right? So the orthogonality will be maintained by 90 degree of the phase shift. Now the problems with earlier OFDM is like, it's kind of an infinite bandwidth that will be taken if I take subcarrier, right? So just to overcome that, what we do is, if you look at this FDMA, first one is like this infinite bandwidth can be filtered out very easily by filtering mechanism. Second disadvantage with FDMA, which is overcome by OFDM, is we used to leave the guard bands in FDMA, just what we discussed in previously, frequency division multiplexing. Now, by generating orthogonal carriers, we can squeeze the available bandwidth, and we have a lot of saving here, which can be filled up with a new signal. So this was the idea of my OFDMA. Okay, so to overcome this side lobes, which is generally occupying a lot of bandwidth, infinite bandwidth, what we use is filter bank multi-carrier transmission. So a filter is used to remove the subcarrier overflow. This is my subcarrier overflow, and filter is used to overcome the subcarrier overflow. And there won't be any side lobes. So technically, there won't be a cyclic prefix needed for more bits per hertz, and different users can have different subbands with different parameters. So you can see I can allocate multiple carriers or multiple sub carriers to a user one, then user two, then user three, right? They can have same power or different powers if, I mean, based on how we use it, right? So spectrum filter OFDM, this is another one. So here what is it that the entire spectrum is divided across multiple users, such as let's say OFDM user 1, OFDM user 2, OFDM user 3, and band is divided into multiple subbands, and each band may use different OFDM parameter to optimize the application uh, based on a customized feature, right? So subband, let's say I am using a different spacing can be used. I'm using 10 megahertz of spacing, and subband, this subband I'm using 6 megahertz of spacing. This subband I'm using 50 megahertz of spacing, right? So based on my requirement and what is my quality of expected quality of service, I will divide my bands accordingly. So that was nothing but the spectrum filtered OFDM. Apart from that, OFDM, that means we used to have multiple subcarriers, and across that we used to put the symbols or bits. Now, instead of OFDM, we used to use GFDM, which is nothing but the generalized frequency division multiplexes, where you used to have a block of frequencies for a particular set of data, right? So instead of having just a frequency, we used to go with a block. I mean, this entire block can be used, right, for transmitting a particular block of data. So it's kind of a blocked based transmission. Uh, the next version is nothing but a slightly advanced version of this one, which is NOMA, non-orthogonal multiple access, NOMA. So far what we were discussing is OFDM. So in NOMA, generally the basic concept behind NOMA is to serve more number of users with limited resources or limited block. So here you can see if there is a massive access which we have to provide across, let's say, too many users, then we may run out of the frequencies. In that particular case, the frequencies are limited, but what we do is we do a different power allocation, such as this is having a large power allocation, such as this is having a large power allocation. So why? Because the distance from the base station to the user is larger, so that's why it gets a larger power allocation. And such as this user is located closely to the base station, so it has a smaller power allocation here. So the power allocated for the users are completely proportional to the distance. If they are located closer to the station, they get lesser power transmitted. If they are located far away from the station, they get larger power transmitted. Plus, the frequency remains same here. There is no segregation in the frequency. We say the frequency remains same, but they can transmit over different power levels. Now, generally, there could be an interference because of the power. So we use the successive interference cancellation. So here, this particular user, right, doesn't need any successive interference cancellation because it has a larger power. If there are any lower power coming here, it will ignore that. But this user will need successive interference cancellation because it has a smaller power coming out, and it's also received some of the fraction for this larger power. So it will use the successive interference cancellation technique to ignore the power coming because of this, right? So the advantages compared to the orthogonal multiple access techniques are it has a massive connectivity. right? It will have lower latency since all of them can access the resources together. It will improve user fairness and spectral efficiency, and it will increase the reliability also. Okay, so now the basic difference between OFDMA and NOMA is OFDMA allocates different subcarriers for different users, right? So let's say user one got this chunk of subcarriers, and user two got this chunk of subcarriers. Whereas NOMA doesn't segregate anything based on the frequencies. It allocates different power levels for different users, such as let's say user one got this power level, and user two got this power level. Hmm? User two got this power level. So this is the idea behind NOMA. So if I look at this, the comparison of OMA, orthogonal multiple access, and NOMA is basically the frequencies were divided in orthogonal multiple accesses, such as OFDMA, across multiple users. So this is having one frequency, this is having second frequency, this is having third frequency, and so on. Whereas in NOMA, what we had is frequency resources remain same, the power levels allocated for different users were different. If the user is located far away from the base station, it gets larger power. If the user is located nearby the base station, it gets smaller power, right? And followed by the successive interference cancellation. So OFDMA, a specific frequency resource was assigned to each user, and because of that, it was tending towards the lower spectral efficiency. Whereas in NOMA, same frequency resource is assigned to multiple mobile users, and because of that, spectral efficiency is higher, and interference can be mitigated through SIC. Mm. So that was the basic idea, and the user fairness is good in NOMA. Uh, Latency is very low because of the massive connectivity simultaneously. Generally, in OMA, if we take an example of OFDMA, a user with good channel condition, they had higher priority for a service. Now, the user which has a bad condition, they'll wait for an access. So they have to wait because let's say if all the frequencies are exhausted, if a new user comes and if there are no frequencies available for a transmission, right, then it has to wait. Then it cannot support a massive connectivity simultaneously. Whereas in NOMA, multiple users with multiple channel conditions, they can transmit simultaneously at different power levels. So therefore, it is able to provide a massive connectivity with a fair user access immediately at a lower latency. Correct. So that's the basic idea between these two. Now, there is a version of hybrid of those two also, right? Let's say hybrid version of OFDMA and NOMA. So let's say we do OFDMA, we do NOMA simultaneously, correct? So let's say this set of frequencies, we do this. And then there is a hybrid version that another set of frequency, there are another users. And then same way we can do the hybridization of between these two. That is something, no, what is coming out as new. I mean, already there are publications available. The idea is not new, but people can extend the existing work with a similar set of idea. How NOMA works. A brief concept of NOMA is, let's say if I take a downlink NOMA network, if I take downlink NOMA network, so there are multiple users, let's say U1, U2, UL, and so on. Hmm? U1, U2, UL, and so on. So there are different powers versus there are different resources, and there's a base station. So let's say each and every one will come here. So let's say U1 is far away located one, so which gets the larger power here, and then it will transmit. Now U1 gets a second position, which will transmit little bit lesser than that, but higher than those. So this one will not have any interference from lower powers, correct? So there will not be any successive interference cancellation here. But U2 will not have any interference for the lower power for the lower users, which are located closer to the base station, but it will see the interference coming from U1 because it has a higher power than U2. U1 has a higher power transmission. I mean, base station will transmit larger power for U1 compared to U2 because it's located far away. To overcome this, SIC is used for U1 when it decodes the signal for U2, correct? And then it will cancel the power coming from U1. Now, similarly, subsequently, no, all the SICs are set up here, and this is a combined not signal. S is equals to I equals to 1 to L, because there are L users. Maybe next, yeah, here S is equals to I to L, because there are L users. AI is a power coefficient, that based on the distance, how much power I have to transmit. The user which is located far away will get larger AI, because it will transmit larger power. And user which is located nearby, this will have lower power transmission. PS is the power transmitted by the base station, and XI is the symbol or maybe the information which user wants to put for a transmission. So the base station will transmit a combined signal, which is nothing but the superposition of all the desired signals of the multiple users, will with different allocated power coefficients. And at a receiver, each user will employ SIC, successive interference cancellation, to perform the to cancel the interference successively. And generally, the power coefficients of the users are allocated based on the channel conditions. So let's say what's the distance between them, and if the distance is larger, larger is the power coefficient, correct? And similarly, these are the things which I've just explained. On the other hand, if I take an uplink NOMA link, a NOMA, that uplink, that means from user to base station transmission, right? This would look like similar to this, and no, they would be transmitting the power based on their situations, and distance, and then base station will do the successive interference cancellation from the respective user and decode the signal. Correct. So this is nothing but the equation for the signal transmitted by the uplink. So here you can see that there are L users, so I is equals to 1 to L. There are L users, so I equals to 1 to L. And HI is nothing but the channel coefficient between those users, and into square root of AI PXI. AI is nothing but the power coefficient, which is based on the channel condition, and P is the power transmitted by the mobile user, N is nothing but the information signal which mobile user is going to place, plus noise is going to be added here across the channel, right? Which is not generally the additive white Gaussian noise with zero mean and variance sigma square. HI is nothing but the channel coefficient, and P is nothing but the maximum transmitted power for this. So this was the basic idea of NOMA. Now there are certain advanced version of NOMA, such as let's
Here the
say
parameter HI is how it is effective, sir. HI.
HI is nothing but the channel coefficient, ma'am. It's like a channel metric, a matrix. It will generally the channel coefficient, the standard channel coefficient, what we have, the channel, what we say. So based on that, so let's say channel coefficient is worst. Then the power transmission should be increased here, right? So if HI is lower, if HI is lower, that means attenuation is lower, then we don't need that much of power transmission here. If HI is higher, that means attenuation is higher, then we have to increase the power transmission here. So according to this,
Individual user it varies, sir. Individual user it is varying HI index.
yeah. Based on I is the user. If there are L users, I is equals to 1 to L. HI is the user. It's channel coefficient between user to the base station, and N is the noise added there. If you want to just ignore this, correct, so you can just say the distance also. So just the distance. HI, distance is inclusive in HI if you say. So because larger is the distance, larger is the path loss, right? So automatically HI gets scaled up if it's a larger distance.
Okay,
So
thank you.
now the cooperative, this NOMA can be framed using cooperative frame in the cooperative fashion also. So let's say cooperative NOMA based no, network. So in this cooperative communication, when the transmission between the source and destination is maintained by multiple relays, right? So let's say if there are multiple relays here, and then it extends the coverage to increase the system's capacity, reducing the performance by by reducing the performance deterioration by because of the multipath fading sort of thing, right? So when we employ this NOMA technique using in the cooperative fashion, we can further improve our performance by cutting down the fading impact. Uh, the combination of cooperative communication and NOMA simultaneously can also be a new idea, right, to enhance the multiple access method. So generally, user with the stronger channel conditions, they are considered as relay here, and due to their ability to decode the information here coming from the users, they will these users they have stronger channel condition. They will assist other users, and this particular link can be framed through NOMA, or here also this can be framed through NOMA. So this is kind of a one idea uh, which I have seen in some of the research paper. I mean, this is the research paper where you can see this idea, particularly the cooperative NOMA. Now there are some sort of advanced version of multiple access technologies, some advanced version of multiple access technologies, such as, let's say, uh, here we can see multiple access through OMA, right? So in this, we have discussed all this, but we want to discuss this part. OMA is sort of an older version. We won't discuss much on this. So here, NOMA, what I have seen is there are three major domains. One is power domain NOMA, which can have different power levels for different users based on their channel conditions. Or there could be a code domain NOMA. In that code domain, there are multiple NOMAs versions, such as, let's say, sparse code, multiple access, low density spreading, multiple users shared. Now, these methods are taken from here. This paper you can go through. If you want to explore this particular method and look how it works, you can go through this paper and check. NOMA multiplexing in multiple domain, such as, let's say, pattern division, multiple access, lattice division, multiple access, and bit division, multiple access. These are something which people are working right now. There is another version called rate splitting multiple access, RSMA. This also, if someone is interested in executing new research, this can be talk about this. So now, generally, see, OMA alone is also not that much of promising because the power transmission cannot be very high. So what people are suggesting is the hybrid version of OFDMA and NOMA, where they can have different frequencies. Also, they can have different power levels also, and they can tweak around the performance based on the requirement. Right. So this is something I have now. This session I'm going to keep it a bit short because I got another meeting, with the administration regarding our permanent campus. So I have to keep this session a bit short. But if you have any questions, we can discuss for 10 minutes, and then uh, we can look further. So 2:30 we'll have a quiz. To 2:30 we'll have a quiz, and then automatically you'll get a certificate at no. Once you clear the quiz at 2:30, you'll get a certificate automatically there. Right. So if there are any questions, anything we can discuss right now. I have to keep this session as short because I got one meeting lined up, no, regarding the development of our permanent campus, so I have to leave for that. So if there are any questions, we can discuss right now. Hmm. What's the difference between NOMA and RSMA? Huh. So here the rate is not splitted. So let's say rate splitting multiple access means what? So based on what's your transmission rate requirement, right? According to that, multiple access is assigned. Whereas here, rate is not splitted. We don't care about the rate in NOMA. We just look at the channel condition. So let's say, see, okay, so my distance is larger, then I transmit larger power. My distance is smaller, then I transmit smaller power. That is called NOMA, right? So that is the basic idea of NOMA. Now in the rate splitting, let's say if I am transmitting larger rate, then I would allocate a larger power, because there could be an SNR dip when I transmit a larger power rate, right? Data at a larger rate. When I transmit a lower rate, that means I can go with a lower border modulation format. So let's say if I'm transmitting 1 Gbps of data at 16 QAM, then my symbol separation is, let me draw it, paint. That's a good question, good idea. Okay, so let's say I'm transmitting generally from Noma, right? So Noma we have already seen. So let's say if I'm transmitting 1 Gbps here. Oh, what is it? Color. Okay, yeah, that works. So let's say if I'm transmitting 1 Gbps of data, right? Gbps. It would be slightly difficult to write, but we'll manage. I get a pen. Okay. So that's my transmission. So what I do is to cover 1 Gbps, I have to go with a higher order modulation format because otherwise it's going to take a lot of time. So I can use 16 QAM. I'll write it here, 16 QAM. Now, when I transmit this particular user, I transmit a larger power. So let's say this is my base station. And when I transmit here for this particular user, 16 QAM, okay? The symbol separation is lower, right? So because each quadrant will have four symbols, right? Symbol separation is lower. There is a chance of higher noise here. There is a chance of higher error here, right? I mean, they can overlap quickly. Right? These are my same symbols. So I'm going to transmit, let's say PT, rate splitted. PT, I'm just taking some numbers. PT equals, let's say, I transmit 10 units, right? Now this is called a rate split. Now let's say another channel, another user wants to transmit, let's say, 10 Mbps, not much, 10 Mbps. Speed is pretty much lower, Mbps. So I don't need that much of higher order modulation format. Maybe I can, maybe I can go with BPSK, right? Or yeah, I mean you can use BPSK, it'll work, or maybe QPSK. But BPSK just I'm giving it for simplicity. So if I get BPSK, the symbol separation is larger. So by nature, BER would be lower. As the symbol separation is larger, by nature, BER would be lower. Okay. So when BER is lower, right, I can transmit lower power here. I need not to transmit very high power. So we can say, let's say I can transmit 4 units because it doesn't transmit that much of higher data rate. That's called a rate splitting idea. Now there could be multiple version of this. This was one idea. Having a class, can I appear quiz at 4 p.m.? Okay. Uh, Yeah, I'll keep the bridge open, right? So I'll put a quiz link. I'll keep, you can appear at 4 p.m., which is fine. I'll open a quiz link in the chat box. You can, during 2:30 to 4, anytime you can appear for a quiz. That's okay. How to implement RSMA in uplink and downlink transmission? Okay. Uh, if you are writing on whiteboard, oh, is it? Oh, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Let me explain that again then. Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I shared a window, not the entire screen. Now I can explain it again. Thank you very much, whoever has pointed that. Okay, so let's say the example rate splitted no method. So how to implement it, and I did not share it. That's my mistake. So now I think you are. Is that visible now? Would you please
Yes,
just
sir.
check in the yeah? You could have said, ma'am, earlier. That's okay, no problem. We'll do it again, no problem. That's okay. We got the time. So let's say I got user number one, right, which wants to transmit at 16 QAM. Not sorry, at 1 Gbps, right? Uh, since the data rate is higher, I have to employ a higher modulation format to cover up that higher data rate, right? Otherwise, I cannot transmit in a shorter duration. I have to transmit larger data, right? So symbols should be larger. I mean, number of symbols should go very, quick. I mean, larger. So I use 16 QAM. Now you can see the symbol separation is not that much of higher. If little bit of noise comes, and then they can overlap here, and they will screw up my bits here, correct? And I can transmit. So to overcome that, I have to transmit larger power. So I can transmit my power. Let's say this is my power, 10 units to overcome this trouble here. Now, whereas let's say there is another user number two, I can, he's asking me to transmit 10 Mbps, which is comparatively 10 times, I mean, very lesser than 1 Gbps, right? So I can employ BPSK or QPSK. Let's say the BPSK for simplicity. The symbol separation is very large. So even if the noise comes, there is a least, I mean, lesser chance that it will go and interfere with other symbol and create an error. So I need not to transmit that much of larger power here because I can transmit just with 4 watts. I mean 4 units of power, right? Because I don't need that much of larger SNR here. Assume the distance is same for both of them, right? Assume the distance is same for both of them. Then here you need a larger SNR to overcome this larger rate because you are going to employ 16 quant. So SNR must be larger. To achieve larger SNR, I have to increase the signal power. How I increase the signal power? By increasing this transmitted signal power. Where here I don't need larger SNR because I'm not transmitting larger rate. So SNR can be lower is okay. So to sustain with lower SNR, because I'm transmitting BPSK separation is good, I can transmit lower power. So the moment when I transmit lower power, I can sustain with lower SNR also, which is fine. So that's how I can implement it. We'll open the quiz here in the chat box at 2:30. So you can attend the attend the quiz session. Some of the participants they requested that they want more time to attend the quiz, and we'll give them more time to attend the quiz. So we'll have a dedicated feedback and a quiz session at 2:30. So I'll share the feedback link and I'll share the quiz link also. So and 2:30 to 4 at any time you can come and attend. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we'll close. I got one more meeting lined up, surprise meeting, so I have to cut this session small just to attend. Please share the link in the WhatsApp group also.
Excuse me, sir.
Um, yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, sir,
We don't
how
want to
to
share on
implement
the just
uplink?
1 minute. We don't want to share on the WhatsApp group, sir, because those who will attend they will get the certificate on WhatsApp group. Everyone will be there, so that's kind of an attendance sort of thing. So we'll share here only. So those who will attend here, they attend the quiz and they get the certificate immediately. It's an auto-generated certificate. Yeah, Puli ma'am, Puli Anand Babu. You were saying something.
So how to implement uplink and downlink NOMA with in RSMS, sir?
How to implement uplink and downlink NOMA in RSMA. So this basic equations, right? So I'll just go to my NOMA example again. Okay, so see there are paper is, let me check if I cut that paper. So see this paper is very nice. I will attach you if you want me to. In that they have this NOMA implementation straight in uplink and downlink both. All the equations are here. So you can see this. Uh, they have implemented this signal equations, and then there is a channel equation, right? And then they substitute the things. Then they analyze the sum rate, signal to noise and interference ratio. Uh, this is nothing but a standard signal to noise and interference ratio where this is a signal power, this is a noise power, right? And here you can see further the analysis under of sum rate of under high SNR and low SNR. And this can be directly coded in MATLAB. So this is a system diagram, but when you code it, it would be the equation, right? And the respective equations are implemented here. I think this paper has the open access code also. This author has made code open to everyone. So that code also can be downloaded. I think this paper is open access. You can access through anywhere. If you cannot access this code, I'm just putting the paper's title here. If you cannot access the code or paper, just write me an email. I'll attach this paper to you. So when you look at that code, you'll have an idea how to do that, and that should be changed for RSMA. This is NOMA. So here, what is he doing? Here, the tweak is he's doing the distance-based things. Now, what you can do here, this AI, you can link it with rate and distance both. You can have a weighted coefficient, right? This AI, let's say higher the rate, higher the power, lower the rate, lower the power. Or you can have a weighted combination of distance and weight together. Let me zoom it for you. Yeah. Or see, higher the rate, higher power allocation, or lower the rate, lower power allocation. So AI can be proportional to the rate. Or you can split it in terms of, let's say, rate and distance. You can have a weighted combination of both of them. That higher the rate, higher the distance, higher power, or lower the rate, lower the distance, lower power, or could be four combinations. So based on that weighted combinations can also be infinite combinations can be possible. Let's say if you do hybrid NOMA OFDM with rate splitting, then again you can change these equations. There are a lot of good ideas coming right now. Again, you can change this equation and you can adjust the rates and other things. Right. So this is how we can do. This is how we can do. So I have placed the title of the paper. You can check there. Yeah, please share the paper. Yeah, yeah. Okay, just write me an email, ma'am, or sir, whoever he is or she is. I'll reply this paper to you. Huh? Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll meet at 2:30 for a quiz. I'll wrap up that meeting at 12:30. I got one meeting at 12:30 to 2. I'll finish and then join you at 2:30. For a quiz, I'll drop the link here only in the chat box because those who
So
attend, they'll get
which
it.
will be joining at 2:30, no, sir? Then we will
Oh,
quit and we'll join at 2:30.
oh, that's okay. That's not a problem. That's fine. 2:30 we have to join.
Sir,
Please, Srinu sir,
sir,
please.
in uplink NOMA, how we can allocate the power to the each user, sir? Uh, what I'm saying is, in downlink NOMA, at the base station transmit power is some PT. We split that power to the based on the channel condition to the all the users. Then we allocate based on the channel conditions. But in uplink NOMA, when you want to allocate the power to the all the users, each user having their own maximum transmit power. We need to split the all the maximum transmit power in uplink NOMA.
Yeah, so see, that's the max bottleneck, correct? But you need, let's say if I have, let's say if I max, I can transmit 10 units, but I need not to transmit 10 units. Let's say this is my user, right?
Okay.
It can
Each user
transmit 10
should
units, but I can
transmit
transmit,
their own maximum transmit power, sir. Each
yeah,
user.
yeah. So let's say a full battery charge, right? Or maybe, battery charge larger than 60%. Then they can have a max transmission power. Mostly all the users have similar spec. I mean, for 5G, let's say similar spec, or maybe 4G, they'll have similar spec, similar maximum transmit power. So let's say they can transmit 10 units of max power, but I need not to transmit 10 units max power. If I'm transmitting lower rate, let's say if I'm just sending a message to someone on WhatsApp, I need not to transmit that much of larger power. It's a text message, right? I can transmit 2 units only. Whereas if
Okay.
I, let's say, share a video, then I have to transmit a larger power. So that's why if
Okay.
you start a download on torrent, you if you start a download on torrent, no, you will find some heat also in your body if the mobile is nearby located. You can feel it when you receive a
Sir,
WhatsApp message. It doesn't. Yeah. So that's
yes,
how the
sir. Yes,
power
sir.
scales up and down.
Yes, sir. I understood. Can we employ the meta heuristic algorithms in uplink NOMA also to allocate the
What's
power
that
optimally between meta heuristic
meta what?
algorithms like
Meta heuristic
particle from
algorithm.
up? Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, you can apply, but generally this integer linear programming based optimization algorithms are more preferable. You can definitely do the heuristics, which is okay. Uh, Good for the conferences
And,
and others, smaller journals. But no, if you're targeting a bigger journal, they'll expect us to apply optimization algorithms with this kind of some sort of mixed integer linear programming algorithms, that kind of optimization things.
okay, one more question, sir. This is successive interference cancellation, no? And the parallel interference cancellation is there to record the each user information uh, correctly. Which one is better one, successive interference cancellation or parallel interference cancellation?
It depends on the application. In NOMA, we use successive interference cancellation based on the distances. But if, let's say, if users are located simultaneously together, then at similar distances, then the parallel interference cancellation would be better. It depends on the application, right? It's dynamic, and sometimes the application scales between these two techniques. Sometimes they use successive, sometimes they use parallel. So it's completely dynamic.
Okay, sir. And this rate splitting multiple axis gives a better spectral efficiency as compared to the NOMA. Recently, I've seen some papers.
NOMA gives better spectrum efficiency compared to rate splitting because all the I mean,
RSMA,
NOMA
RSMA,
gives
sir.
better. Yeah. NOMA gives better. I mean, it. See here, this slide. Yeah, rate splitting multiple access. Oh, so here when we split the rate, we sometimes we split the frequencies also along with the rates. So
Okay.
if the frequencies are same, right? So it's kind of a advanced version of NOMA. So instead of, I mean, it's kind of a weighted when we take, so it depends on the application. So let's say if I do it in this way here, this example which we have taken. So if I take, let's say rate based power allocation, right? And
Okay.
the frequencies are same.
Okay.
So then it's going to give me rate and distance based. If I take a weighted coefficient AI based on the rate and distance, then it's going to give me the better spectral efficiency here. So let's say AI is proportional to the rate plus the distance. Then it's going to give me the better spectral efficiency compared to what do you call compared to NOMA, because it's going to give me the better, not only the better spectral efficiency, it's going to give me the better power efficiency also, because I'm cutting down my power cost based on my transmitted rate. So it's like case to case based, but if this is the scenario, then RSMA based advanced version of NOMA can give us a better one. But it's like you can hybridize also uh, those techniques and tweak and check which one is giving better sum rate after the
Okay.
simulations.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. So if
Control.
questions,
Excuse me, sir.
yeah, please, sir.
If the two users are having the same distance,
Hmm.
in case of NOMA,
Hmm.
if the two users are having the same distance, how the power will be allocated, sir?
If the so if the this so actually then we look at, so in if you don't take a rate splitting, right, it's just a NOMA, then there is a difficulty here, because if they get the same power level, there would be an interference, direct interference between these two. So then we have to figure out something. Then we have to go with hybrid version of NOMA. So if they have same distance, we can do a separate block of frequencies. That's why the hybrid version of NOMA and OFDM comes. So see, if I transmit same frequency, same power, both of them will get confused and no one will receive anything. Then we same distance will not be same for longer duration of time, right? So let's say both of them are moving, so they come closer and they then move away. So for that particular smaller duration, I can switch to hybrid NOMA, where we have different frequencies for those two users at same power levels. And once they move apart, distance will be different, and then we can come back to the NOMA. We can switch to NOMA.
Okay,
Sir,
fine. Thank you, sir.
maximum how many users can we multiplex in non-orthogonally in NOMA?
Ideally infinite, but generally that won't be the case. Generally, in one cell size, typical density is 100 users or maybe 200 or 300 users in a smaller cell, which can be larger with this ultra dense network. But technically, it's infinite, but I mean, it doesn't work in that way. But generally, what I've seen, the cell
Recently, I've seen some
density
people,
is
sir,
around.
maximum they are limit to 2 users or 3 users only. They're employing this some user clustering algorithm. If the more number of users they're there, after that each cluster multiplexing non-orthogonally with 2 users or 3 users. So that's why I'm
We have to
asking
support
maximum.
larger number, no, because 2 3 is not of any use. Because let's say if we get a bigger event, one bigger event, the auditorium, there would be at least 500 plus students or 500 plus users or any. Let's say a cricket match happens, right? So it would be at least 10,000 plus some sort of thing. So 2 3 users may not be of any use. So it should be at least thousands or hundreds of things. This
Then
things, but only NOVA may not work. It's going to be the hybrid versions of multiple techniques. You can employ the clustering which you are saying. Yeah.
then we multiplex more number of users. There is a chance of decoding delay also, sir. When you are using the successive interference cancellation at the receivers.
Yeah,
And also
definitely. Yeah,
then that
that's why we
will
use the hybrid versions, no? So that whichever works in that particular time dynamic situation, we go with that. So only NOMA may not work. We have to apply hybrid OFDMA, NOMA, or maybe any other technique hybridized with NOMA. So in conjunction, they will work together and coordinate.
okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So these days, the hybrid fashion is very important rather than focusing on just one. So people used to do the hybridization and check how it works.
Is Noma gives the better spectral efficiency as compared to massive MIMO, sir?
Oh, massive MIMO is a different thing. Uh, Massive MIMO is a different thing.
In terms
Like,
of spectral efficiency, sir.
no, it cannot be apples to apples comparison because it's completely MIMO part is completely different, no? Because it's dealing with the multipath fading and other things. See, MIMO increases the spectral efficiency. NOMA also increases the spectral efficiency, definitely. See, MIMO cannot be compared with NOMA. OFDMA can be compared with NOMA, right? No, because
But
MIMO
some
is
people
a
are combining MIMO Noma, massive MIMO Noma, like that, sir.
ha. So it's like OFDMA NOMA. so so in that way, right? So see, MIMO and OFDMA work together, correct?
Yes, sir.
Noma and MIMO works together. They work together. So these are kind of a supporting technologies with each other. But there is no direct comparison between MIMO and NOMA. If you want to compare, then OFDM and NOMA comparison will be there because both are different verticals. See, one is dealing with the multipath fading and increasing the multipath transmissions to improve the spectrum efficiency, to improve the signal gain through the multiple gain combining or maybe zero forcing receiver and other thing. That's a different technology, completely a different technology. Whereas this is the express part, how we allocate the powers, how we allocate the frequencies here, correct? No, so both of them are
Okay.
slightly different, and both of them will work. See, MIMO will be there definitely. Whatever you call massive MIMO, super massive MIMO, ultra MIMO, whatever you call, that will be there. Along with this, either you're going to use OFDMA, either you're going to use NOMA, either we are going to use hybrid version of any of those RSMA, NOMA, OFDMA, no, whatever it is. So that would be a supporting technology with MIMO.
Is Noma is deployed in 5G any country, sir? Till now? Or
I don't have a information. Generally, those commercial guys they don't share that information. We'll have to check some sort of white papers. I haven't checked it, but I have heard about the hybrid NOMA and OFDMA. NOMA is some point of time, when this case comes, with Sir said, no, if both the users they have same distance, then it's a screw up situation. So in that case, we have to go with the hybrid NOMA, OFDMA. So mostly they go with the hybrid version rather than just singular with NOMA because when they have the same distance, then it's a trouble, right?
yes, sir.
Both of them they are at the same frequency at the same power. So
They don't know their own information when you are using the SIC at the receiver.
yeah,
And
so
this is what thing. Okay, sir. And one last question here. When you are employing this extra interference cancellation at the receiver, our user near, for example, near user means strongest channel gain user will decode the all the remaining users when you are employing this extra interference cancellation. Then that strongest user able to decode all the user means there is a chance of security issues of all the users in Nano.
yeah. So that's another vertical because that's why we have to employ
Because
SHE
strong user
256
are
kind
able to
of things.
decode all the users.
Uh, this cryptographic algorithms, we have to employ that SHA 256 sort of things to encode our or coding theory sort of things, right? So which will increase my security of the information. Definitely, that would be the case. Yes, but our security algorithm should be enhanced nicely. That
Okay.
would be part of the physical layer security in wireless communication channels. So
Okay.
that's actually one research vertical which people used to work.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, you're welcome, sir. Thank you very much, everyone. If if there are no more questions, we'll drop right now. I'll attend the meeting and we'll have a quiz